Turn on the torch to light up the flame. Time to melt some glass, my friends. There you are. Here I am to explain, to teach, and create again. I used to sing that song all the time. And then I turned it into a voice chant instead of a song ditty. So, today we're going to do, and I'm going to do this as a whole voiceover. So what you're seeing is what I'm doing at the moment. And what I'm saying is said later, so you don't have to hear the torch burning in front of you and all that sort of stuff. Today we're going to be doing working with red exotic glass, and I did an encasing video which I will put down below somewhere, and it is basically making red exotic rod. And I told this to somebody on Facebook, and he says, do you mentioned about doing it in tubing, but I looked all over and couldn't find it. So basically I decided to go ahead and make a red exotic from scratch into a rod in this video, and I'm also going to do some red exotic tubing in this video as well. What you see in my hand right now is a red exotic rod. It looks almost black, but it has a dark rusty color to it. It's a very interesting color. Once I encase it, it will turn out to be that nice red color that you see. I do have a diadymium lens onto the camera, but at this point it don't look that good, but we're going to leave with it anyway. So here we go. I'm going to attach this. It's a short piece of red exotic, so I'm going to attach it to a clear punte so that I don't burn my fenders when I add it to. Now, when I do encasing, I usually do a 2-layer job. I'll layer a color over clear and then add clear over that color. And right now I've got, I believe I'm going to use 8mm rod for the inside encasing, and the outside, of course, you can see that that's about a 4.5 to 5 mil rod. And the way I layer is I'm heating up, you can't see it from this angle, but I'm heating up the rod more than I'm heating up the clear rod that I'm adding it to. But I am getting it close. I'm not getting it, I'm sort of heating up next to it. And I usually call the one in my right hand the pencil, and the one in my left hand the paper. And I add to the paper with the pencil. And I just continually layer it around the edge. And you got to make sure that you're heating up evenly and doing that quick enough, because if you do it too slow, where it ends at the bottom of that rod, or where the color ends at the bottom, it can stress out that particular spot and check and crack it off. So do it quickly, even, and heat evenly, and if you have to, stop for a second and warm down at the bottom. But as you can see, I'm doing this a quick and easy motion, and again I'm sort of drawing onto that rod with the red exotic. And as you can see, it's already turning sort of a red color, and I used that whole rod of red exotic and layered it on top of that clear. And now I'm going to take some 10 mil rod and again do the same exact thing and layer that clear over the red exotic. Now there's a little bit of crud in the tip of this 10 mil rod that I'm going to use, so I'm going ahead and pulling that off. And here we go. We're doing the exact same thing, heating mainly the clear 10 mil rod and layering it on top of the red exotic that I've already put down. Now I do this two ways. One way, I already take that red exotic and twist it up and then layer the clear over it and then twist that up and pull it out. And sometimes I just layer the red exotic over like I'm doing now and then layer the clear over it and then turn around and twist it all. And each time you twist, it adds a different perspective or swirl of color into the encasement, so you get different results each way, as it were. But that's all I'm doing, is just layering another layer of clear over that whole thing that I just did. And the quicker you do it, and again, I'm heating up the rod and adding it to the red exotic in my left hand. And you can see the color comes out. It looks more purple in this picture, but it's a rusty red color. I think it has something to do with the filtering of the didymium lens over the camera. But you can sort of see the nice rusty red color that it becomes right there in that I'm starting now. Now what I'm doing is heating, twisting, and as I do this, it turns into sort of like a little blob, but it also evenly swirls the color, and you can see where it ripples from line and line of the glass. This smooths it all out, but it also adds design pattern into the red exotic that is pretty interesting. Never fails. Get going and you get an itch on the end of your nose sometimes. It's like, ah! That's what I just stopped and did. And you continue this all the way down, the twisting, and then I'll pull it out into a rod. And from that rod, I am going to turn around and make clear tubing. No, red exotic tubing from scratch. There's two ways of doing it, and I will demonstrate both ways on this video. And again, what I'm doing is swirling it all evenly, and now making sure that it's nice, even. And now I'll stretch that out all into one, well, I think, yeah, do it all into one little rod. Encased rod as it is, I guess you could say. And now I'm pulling it out. And the fun part is making sure that you try to do it evenly. And you can sort of see that there's a little bit of a thick, thin going on. But the idea is to try to keep it as even as possible so that you can use that rod for, you know, a continuous something if you had to. But that all comes out with practice and learning how to flow that glass. It's very, very important to learn to flow. Let it flow, let it flow. Yeah, never mind. I'm not a very good singer anyways. And from that rod that I just did, I will do a demonstration on both the types of tubing that you can make. Of course, I reach for everything, and what do I get? Solid rod, but what I need is tubing. So, reach over a little further. There we go. A little bit of color on the end of that, so that's no big problem. I'm going to go ahead and just pull that off. And as much as I do and can do with those things, I'm not throwing that away. That's going to be set down and used for something else somewhere down the line. Now, I have a blow hose. Blow hose is a very important tool to have. On the end of this is that brass fitting that's in my hand right now is a swivel. They run about $15 for the cheaper type, and you can putting it around your neck does tend to take the weight off of the piece. And now I'm going to do the exact same thing that I did before, which is line this red exotic that's in my right hand onto this tubing. And again, I'm heating up more of the red exotic rod than I am the tubing and layering it onto that piece of tubing. And I'm going to continue that all the way around and layer it just like I did before, but this time it's hollow in the center and not just solid, which makes a little bit of a difference. And the reason I keep the blow hose in, and I could have done it a little later, but I did it already, is because it does tend to help you in case it starts to collapse somewhere. You want to keep this hollow, and that's the whole idea. And I think I've gotten it either close or almost all the way around. A little bit more. And again, it's all in the heating up and flowing of the rod that's in my right hand and adding it to the one in the left hand. Working together. Your hands are working together in the glass, in the flame continuously. So it's very important. And now I'm going to layer a layer of, actually no, what I'm doing is I'm going to make sure the thing is, I'm twisting it as I do this, making a swirl pattern go on, and also blowing into it. And as you twist it like this, it also evens out the thickness all the way around the tubing so that it's consistent from, in the tubing itself. I'm also going to probably heat up a little bit. And if you haven't noticed before, if you look in the reflection on the heat shield that's in front of me, you can probably see what's going into the flame a little bit better than what's actually there. So that's for future reference. That might help you. I just noticed that myself, but it is a good reference point so that you can see what's going on inside the flame a little bit better than the bright yellow that's going on it. It's the first reflection anyway. Now again, I twisted it, and I'm also blowing into it just slightly. And when you're blowing into this, you're not blowing into it like a bubblegum bubble where you're going whoosh, blowing it out. You're just trying to even out, keep the pressure about even, or a little bit more if you want to blow out a little bit, so that you don't collapse the tubing. That's the main thing. You're not into collapsing the tubing that you got there. Now, I'm going to layer another layer of clear over this whole thing. And you can already see the swirl patterns going on inside this. And now with this layer of clear, it's the same basic thing. Again, the more clear you add to red exotic, it is a very stressful color. And the more clear you add to it, it does tend to take a little bit of stress out. But I will tell you that the best thing to do is, if you're working a piece, is to work a piece of red exotic and throw it immediately into the oven and let it cool down slowly. And while you're doing it, make sure you're warming it up evenly and keeping it evenly heated. Otherwise, it can stress and can crack. That is the nature of the red exotic beast. So the way I'm doing this is taking a little bit of the stress out of it, but it still has that tendency to be finicky, to say the least. So, with that, I've layered a whole layer of clear, and now I'm going to go ahead and twist it one more time. Again, this helps even out what I've already blown into the piece, and make sure that you're blowing it more, or that the thickness in the wall of the tubing comes out evenly as well. I'm glad that I did notice that the reflection does help, so that you can see a little bit better what's going on inside the flame. Now I'm going to real quick here where it's more bulky and bumpy down at the end of the piece of glass. I'm going to take that and put it on the L marver and smooth it out a little bit. That's coming up. Or if I haven't done it, I'm doing it. Make me out a liar. Go ahead. But yeah, it's about right now. I put it onto the L marver. If I don't, then I didn't. Darn. Thought I did, but that's one way of smoothing it out, by smoothing it onto the L marver. I guess in this case I did not do that. It turned out evenly enough as it was. Just keeping it smooth and even all the way around. And that piece of tubing would make a good small bowl, tobacco pipe. It would also, you could use it in making jars and or bottles, small ones. And depending upon what you wanted to use it for, it does come out with a nice color red. More of a rusty red, but a nice red as it was. So that's just the way it works sometimes. So what's happening is that right at the very end, it got a little thick. And when you're blowing into the tubing, you'll notice that there'll be thick and thin spots. But just make sure that if it's thin and you want to make it thicker, or make it where the thin spot is, if you wait a little while, it cools down and doesn't work. But if the thick spots that you've gotten it heated up enough, it will continue to be molten enough that you can blow it out a little bit more to make it more evenly thick or thin. Okay, and that's that one piece of tubing there. Now I'm going to get another piece of tubing. Excuse me, coughing. Yep. There's a little bit of stress that's going to happen on that piece of tubing. That all I'm going to do is just break it off a little bit. It pops off. I thought maybe it'd pop off there, but it didn't. But I ended up using it anyway. I am going to add a little bit of a graphite reamer there and flare it out just slightly. And that's just to give me a lip. And from this, I'm going to do sort of like a coil pot deal. And basically, it's fold and pull back and forth. This is the way I pull it up and fold it over, pull it up, fold it over, and I continually coil. Now again, watch. You might be able to see it a little bit easier, a little bit better in the flame behind, from the reflection of the, from what's happening, but maybe not. But it's basically a fold over, pull and fold over, pull and fold over, instead of just coiling it like a lot of people do. That it gives it a more even thinness or thickness that you want, and coils it all the way around. And it does make if you do it right, it seals itself as you're going until you come out at the length that you want. I'm not going to make this very much bigger. I think I'm stopping right about there. And now I'm going to put the blow hose in my mouth, I think. And here we go. Yep. It's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it, right? And now I'm again making it all nice and even thickness. And then I'm going to add one more layer of clear over this whole thing. And again, if you wanted to, you could do it just as is. But the more clear over it does tend to help take the stress out of it. or gives it a little bit more of a stress-free or stress-less zone, I guess you could say. Okay. There we go. Isn't that special? Now I'm going to go ahead and add the 10 mil clear over the whole thing again. So if you like me with the voiceover like this, or if you would prefer to hear it just the way it is from the torch, again, this is something new I'm trying. My son says I need to edit more of my videos, and that's what I'm trying to do. So doing it from scratch never hurts. And this is a way, again, of doing something, and actually you might get a little bit more out of it because I'm thinking more on what I'm doing at the time and have to concentrate on making sure I'm not burning myself, and also making sure that I'm making a good product. So this might be a way of doing it that I can add a little bit more, you know, voiceover and give you more information than what I would be doing at the time that I'm making the piece of glass. So now again, I added a whole layer of clear, and then I'm going to go ahead and heat that up and twist it a little bit as I do this. And the idea is also to make sure it's flowing evenly and blowing well. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So there must be a color from the reflective image that's coming off of the heat shield, or a film that's on that heat shield, that does give a better image. Still a little rippled, but it's still giving you better than what I could have done otherwise. So something to think about in future videos and whatever. And again, all I did was just heat it up evenly and blow it evenly. And you've got to make sure that you're not overblowing and not underblowing, because you don't want it to collapse, and you don't want to make a thin bubblegum bubble, but you're just trying to heat it evenly and blow it evenly. And again, it comes with practice, practice, practice. And oh, by the way, yeah, practice. What I was doing, scraping there, was there's a carbon buildup that's beginning with the torch that I'm using, and that scrapes the carbon buildup off of the torch itself. And there is the one red exotic piece of tubing that I did, the one way. And you can sort of see some clear spots in there, but that's nothing to really be upset about. Once you fire it in the oven, that should heat up and strike back into the piece. So it's just a matter of reheat. And there is that other one that I just did. Same idea. Some of it is the clear, but it does and will have more of a complete layer of red once you restrike it. So that's all for today, folks. As always, carpe vitro, and enjoy your day. Bye.